Back now with Ask the Doctors. We have plastic surgeon Dr. Michael Kim here with us this morning, getting us more on flesh-eating bacteria and how it can enter the skin from swimming or even from eating raw things. Oh, yikes. Dr. Kim, good morning.
Good morning. You know, I talk about this almost every year only because in the warm weather, I think people out there should be aware of this. I hear it all the time. Mm-hmm. And then when I was in Korea, there was actually a national warning about a Vibrio.
Oh, really?
In Korea because of the warm climate and eating raw shellfish. So Vibril Vulnificus is one of the Vibrios, the bacteria, halophilic, meaning it's like salt water.
Okay.
And it's related to the bacteria that causes cholera, if you remember in the days when people died from diarrhea and dehydration. And it lives in the brackish waters. That's why it's very common in southwest Florida. And it can enter the body several ways. One is eating raw shellfish, like raw oysters from warm climates, oysters, etc., clams. And the other way is through the skin. So if you have a fresh wound and you go into the brackish water, it can enter your skin and cause significant wound infections, really, really bad. Mm-hmm. So particularly in brackish water, I tell patients if they have recent surgery, they should stay out of the water. And the people that tend to die from this, there are a bunch of people that die every year. Probably, I heard 100 deaths a year, maybe, around the country, is usually from patients who are immunocompromised. People who have had liver transplants, cancer on chemo, kidney, liver failure from drinking. Those patients who get these infections can die. But even patients who are healthy can get terrible wound infections. I've seen patients with debridements, big chunks taken out of their leg and arm because of the infection. So it's a very serious infection that happens.
How common, or how likely is someone to get this?
There are many cases in the country, particularly in this area, anywhere there's brackish warm water. But I think if you think about it, we're worried about alligator deaths. I think there's probably one alligator death reported average a year in the United States. Shark deaths, maybe around the world, like 10 deaths. But here we're talking about 100 deaths a year. Interesting, I was reading about deaths from different things, and even falling coconuts, about 150 people die a year.
Really? All right.
So we know we're worried about alligators and sharks, but this Vibrio is pretty deadly. So people should be aware that if they have had recent surgery or recent big cut and they're in the beach, they probably should stay out of the water at least for a couple of days until it's sealed up. And be aware, if you do go in the water, that if you start seeing an infection or a problem, go immediately to the hospital or your doctor and tell them you've been in the salt water. And maybe usually the treatment for Vibrio, if caught early, can be treated successfully.
I know it can be tough, though. Vibrio moves very, very quickly. I mean, it literally, we call it flesh-eating bacteria for a reason.
Yeah, I think half of the patients require amputation or debridement when they get the wound infection. So if you jump on it with antibiotics, you can treat it pretty well. I've seen some patients who do well. But usually what happens is patients get a little wound infection, they go to the ER, they just give them some standard antibiotics, they don't think about Vibrio, and then a week or two later they get this rip-roaring infection. By then, you have to cut it all out.
Oh no, what can you look for, signs-wise, to catch it early?
Well, redness, blistering, pain after being in the water, and that's important because a lot of patients don't think about it, but if they've been in recent water, I saw one patient that was actually in a crash in one of the little canals. They got Vibrio from the accident.
Oh, wow.
So anytime there's water with skin damage, you should always think about Vibrio, even though it's not terribly common, but it's something that pops up all during the warm climate times when Vibrio is very common.
And it can result even from a small cut. I know you've talked about this before. It doesn't necessarily have to be a large gaping cut. It could be something really minor.
Right, a little seashell cut, then you go in the water.
Yeah.
You get a little, everyone does that, but if you don't think about it and you're in the water, you get a cut, and then you get home and it starts swelling.
Wow.
Then you need to think about something serious that's going on.
Oh my goodness. All right, well, good to know, Dr. Kim. Thank you so much, as always. So important to hear about. And again, we do hear about these cases here in Southwest Florida.